Hi, everyone. Welcome to our 30th webinar, September. This is going to be a lot of content in a short amount of time. So I'm going to go pretty fast, but as always, if you have questions, post them in the chat, and I'll try to answer as many as I can during the presentation. And there will be a little bit of time at the end for questions as well. So I'm going to jump right in so we can get through 30 lessons from 30 episodes in 30 minutes. So if this is your first time with us, we do these webinars monthly, do a quick intro of us and our company, and then jump straight into the content. So I'll be your presenter this month. My name is Dylan. I am the Director of Operations here at Sporesight. I'm a certified industrial hygienist. I've done a whole bunch of assessments, testing, mold and otherwise unrelated to mold in commercial, industrial, and residential properties. We are TechSight. We are a software company that builds digital diagnostic software in the human, vet, and environmental workplace. We also run a laboratory, commercial laboratory, under our environmental arm called Sporesight. So Sporesight is our brand for our environmental analysis. Our human analysis is under our company name TechSight, where we have a number of various collaborations, including Mayo Clinic, which is a big partner of ours. And then our animal diagnostics are all white labeled by Zoetis, a world leader in animal health, under their VetScan Imagist platform. So our environmental lab, we are AHA MPAT participants. We are ISO 17025 accredited, and we have a state of Texas mold analysis laboratory license, the only state in the US that currently has a licensing program for mold analysis. This is really the most sales pitch you'll get on this whole presentation. So our kind of core business is $20 a sample, same day turnaround time, standard, with available overnight shipping at a pretty affordable rate if you use our pre-made return labels. So we'll start this off. So 30 lessons from 30 episodes. We're going to start off with the positives, things you should do or consider doing. All of this content comes from our catalog or library of past episodes. So if you want to expand more on a topic, look back through our library of past episodes and you'll find the relevant episode. Most of them are half hour. Some of the early ones were a full hour. So what to do? Calibrate your pump at every project. If you're switching cassette types or if you're switching power sources, all of these things can have an impact on the flow rate of the pump. A little tip, hold the rotometer level when you're reading it. If you tilt it up or down, you could introduce some bias into the measurement. 2, collect an outdoor sample every time when you're doing indoor air sampling. And place your pump in the breathing zone, generally 4 to 6 feet off the ground. We recommend using a tripod, but a step stool, a countertop, anything to get that thing off the ground, not too high, not too low, is a solid recommendation when you're collecting indoor or outdoor air samples. Do run your air pump according to the cassette manufacturer's flow rate and time. Generally speaking, for Sport Trap cassettes, they're going to be 15 liters per minute. And most common recommendation directly from the manufacturers of these cassettes in the typical residential indoor space, 5-minute sample. I know many of you have been in training programs that tell you 10 minutes a sample. And I'll tell you, in most residential settings, unless it's a very tidy, very clean home, 10 minutes, you run the risk of overloading the cassette. Overloading the cassette is one of the biggest problems you can have when collecting a sample, because it makes it incredibly difficult to get an accurate count. Everywhere where dirt or debris particulate lands is a space where mold spores can't land, so you're most likely underrepresenting the level inside of the home. So 5 minutes is a good rule of thumb. In my career in residential settings, almost exclusively 5-minute samples with some caveats. 10-minute samples for very clean environments, commercial office spaces where there's routine cleaning, people aren't spending as much time as a home, healthcare facilities, or post-remediation sampling in the containment areas. 10 minutes are typically appropriate in those settings. If places are extremely dirty, if they're undergoing current renovations, construction, demolition, etc., doing a shorter sampling interval, even as short as 1 minute, could be the best bet in those settings. Like I said, running the risk of overloading the particulate. These cassettes will capture anything that's in the air, not just mold. So if there's a lot of dirt and debris in the air from other sources, it can capture those and make it a little underreported or biased negatively on the sample results. So do use swab tests from various surfaces, drywall baseboards, HVAC components if you have concerns with mold growth on a surface. Swabs are good for areas that are hard to reach, maybe irregular in shape, or if they're heavily soiled or wet. On the next one, number 6, do use tape lifts to collect spores directly from affected surfaces. So things like flat pieces of drywall that aren't actively wet, wood, cabinetry, solid surfaces that aren't heavily soiled or actively wet. Tape lifts are really good because it retains the actual structure of the organism on the surface as it appeared on the surface on the sample. So it makes the analysis a little more thorough, but there is a trade-off both tape and surface samples. In general, my bias is slightly towards tape lifts over swabs. Generally speaking, if you swab or tape lift a sample, you should get similar results. There is a trade-off on some of those niche circumstances like I described, but generally I opt for tape lifts more frequently than surface swabs. So I think I'm going to take a look, see if we've got some questions really quick. What do you recommend for outside time? It's a great question. And generally speaking, outside is expected to be cleaner of background debris more so than inside, but it does depend on some local environmental issues. So 5 minutes outside will work every time. 10 minutes outside will probably work most of the time, but there may be situations like you're close to a freeway. Something I've seen outdoors is in rural areas during harvest time. If they're harvesting nearby, that generates a lot of particulate debris into the air, and 10 minutes may actually get overloaded outdoors. Most scenarios outside, 10 minutes would be okay, but there is some small risk, not very common situations, so 5 or 10 minutes. So getting back to the presentation after that question, 7, label your samples clearly on the chain of custody and at least on the chain of custody, but you can also label this. Most of these cassettes have a little space on the cassette to place notes. So belt and suspenders, labeling the cassettes and the chain of custody. Thing that we've got a lot of feedback from inspectors from the field is consider using multiple pumps to speed up your time on site. So if you can, if you know the areas you're going to sample, you could set a pump up in the kitchen and one in the basement, and have those going consecutively in parallel, so you can cover more sampling with less amount of time. 9, use an umbrella or similar to protect the pump and cassettes while it's raining. If we go back to the previous slide where I say do collect an outdoor air sample, some people have been trained not to collect air samples if it's raining outside. If you have questions about that topic, we have a blog and previous webinars on it where I go into detail on my and other experts' take on sampling during rain and inclement weather. But consider covering the inlet. The worst thing that can happen when you're sampling in the rain is raindrops come and land inside the cassette through the inlet. So some pumps have the ability to sample facing uh, uh, not straight up and down, but to the side or even upside down. Some people do sample collection that way. I have been the guy standing out in a front yard with an umbrella covering the myself and the pump while it's sampling. So here's a big one: is if you're a customer of ours, do use our mobile web app to submit and manage your chain of custodies. You can access it through a really handy website. You can save it onto the home screen of your phone. You can buy sampling materials. You can look at past projects, etc. We have a webinar, a blog, and a web page that covers our web app. If you're not familiar with it, helps streamline your operations in the field. Gets rid of the physical paper chain of custody forms, and it makes our life in the lab much easier. If you use the app already, thank you. You're doing our lab techs a big favor. It's much easier. We don't have to try to translate your handwriting if you have poor handwriting. It makes our overall laboratory operations much easier if you do use it. If you don't use it, consider trying it or reaching out to us if you have questions or things that maybe the app doesn't do that you're looking for it to do for you. Do carry extra sampling supplies with you. You'll never know when you're on an inspection where maybe on the phone they weren't interested in any mold testing, or maybe you had expected you were only going to take 3 samples, but when you get there, it actually turns out you want to take more. Always come prepared to take samples if you're not, even if you're not planning on collecting samples to that project, and always come with extra sampling materials so you can be prepared in any situation. And then also, you do want to set realistic expectations with your client and real estate agents. Finding mold isn't a death sentence. It's not going to kill every sale. You're here to give your client the best information you can so they can make the right decision for them. But like I said, finding mold isn't always a huge major complication to the process. Here's one that I say this so often. Sometimes I feel a bit crazy, but I know the true difference between mold and mildew. Mildew has kind of been a lesser term, a more cute term for things that may be more routine, like discoloration on caulking in bathrooms, or things that you can see without major flooding or water damage that many realtors, homeowners, property managers refer to as mildew. In fact, if it's growing on building materials or surfaces in the house, it's certainly not mildew. Mildew is a true mildew is a plant pathogen. It has to grow on plants. It's a requirement for it. It's not going to be growing on your shower curtain. That is probably some form of mold, or maybe yeast or bacterial growth, some other microbial growth. And here's another little side note is, just because it appears to be black doesn't mean it's the notorious toxic black mold, which is specifically Stachybotrys, which has a bit of a over zealous reputation. But just because it's black doesn't necessarily mean it is Stachybotrys. It doesn't necessarily mean it's toxic. The color of the mold isn't an indication of the problem or risk. So if you aren't a customer of ours, a big do is take advantage of your first report free on us. You get 3 samples, up to 3 samples on your first project with us for free. And then 15, a big thing of our analysis is utilizing an AI-based workflow for our human analysts. These algorithms are trained on hundreds of thousands of images put together by myself and other industry experts to assist our trained professional analysts who review the data and correct it as needed. We're always improving our processes, and it keeps getting better. So It is a great tool to improve this process. It's been going on for decades. It's kind of the first big shift in this type of analysis in a long time. So we're coming close to the end of the do's. So do consider trying the new AirTrap XL and the soon to be launched AirTrap Mini. These have been optimized for our scanning process. The gel pad and materials are much more uniform and flat, which makes sample prep, scanning, and analysis easier on our end. It has been shown in studies to actually be more, collect more particulate and more fungal particles. The full slide form factor of the XLs makes our lab techs' lives a little easier. It's one less step. It's a streamlined prep, and it is really the preferred cassette that we have at this time. 17. Become familiar with IICRC S520 and other remediation guidelines. It will help you give your clients the best information possible. You're not going to be expected to write remediation protocols, but being familiar with the methods and procedures of qualified remediation professionals will help you give good advice to your clients. 18. This isn't just exclusive to taking photos of sampling locations, but do take photos in general. Taking a picture of where you sampled from can help when you're talking to someone maybe a week after the inspection. When I was doing assessments, sometimes you remember the client and the home and the circumstances, but other times, you're in many homes during the day and during the week. It's very easy to get things mixed up. So having photos that you can look back on to remember, oh yes, I took this sample from this room at this time, as well as anything else that's of note. I know if you're on this call and you're a home inspector, you're probably taking dozens of photos at every property already, just a part of your workflow. But do consider taking additional photos related to your mold testing if you're providing that. So we're going to shift over to the what not to do's. So we were telling you what things you should do or consider doing. Here are the inverse, what things you shouldn't do or you should consider not doing. So you don't want to collect air samples too close. And this is, I'll put an asterisk here because there may be circumstances, some circumstances where you might want to sample near an HVAC vent. But vents, fans, especially open windows, having conditions that are closed during your sampling period is very important. Sampling next to an open window, you're going to have a lot of bias from that fresh air ventilation. It's going to make it harder for you to interpret that there is or isn't a problem in that space. Fans and vents can cause aggressive turbulence in the air. It could cause some sampling issues. Not as big of a problem as the open windows. Generally speaking, sampling in unfinished, occupied spaces, so things like crawl spaces, attics, really rustic, unfinished basements, closets, things like that. Generally speaking, air sampling isn't going to be as reliable as furnished, livable spaces. These spaces typically don't have as high housekeeping, so dust and debris can build up. Influx from outdoor air, the mold spores just naturally occurring from the outdoor air can enter these spaces, settle into dust and around the space that just doesn't get cleaned out routinely. So there can be occasionally false positives or other hard to interpret circumstances around sampling in those areas. Breaking the chain of custody, maybe 21, I'll alter to say, don't forget to maintain your chain of custody, whether that's through the app or through the paper forms. Forgetting to fill aspects out or incorrectly filling aspects out can lead to delays in your results, it can actually also have downstream effects as well in legal situations. If a project of yours gets into litigation, making sure that chain of custody is complete is one of the very first things attorneys will look at, because it's very easy to pick apart the results when the chain of custody and submission process wasn't followed completely. So, and then lastly, it can really slow down your results. We pride ourselves on same day turnaround time. If things are missing and we have to reach out to you, that can delay getting your results back to you in a timely manner. So making sure that you're filling those out completely is very important. So don't test during active construction or after very recent cleaning or remediation activities. When, like I mentioned in the do's, if you're testing during demolition, and it may not be related to the mold testing at all. They may be getting floors put in, or the plumbers there working on things. Even cutting into a small piece of drywall, pulling up rugs or carpets, carpet cleaning, vacuuming, all of these things can release a large amount of debris into the air. And you want to wait until at least a few hours after those operations. If it's a big renovation or big construction, you may want to wait a day or two after construction has ceased to test. 23, we're getting close to the end. We're going to have some time for questions. So don't encourage the use of DIY mold testing kits. With another asterisk here, generally speaking, the DIY kits on the market leave much to be desired as far as the quality of results, how actionable the results are. Anything that's related to a settle plate, a petri dish test, etc., those tests are very unreliable, very hard to interpret. There are some DIY testing kits on the market that utilize similar spore trap cassettes that are more reliable, but just knowing where and how to sample is a big part of doing mold testing right. And it's very hard, for the general consumer to get their head around all the specifics prior to testing. Don't forget about our resources that we have for you. We have a fungal glossary on our website, which goes over all of the types of mold that we will report on. A little picture, and also a little snippet as far as a little background information. In our Mold Resource Center for your clients, that is a directory that has a lot of general consumer-based information that you could pass on directly to your clients if they want to learn more about mold. 25, we've covered this on a few webinars, so don't skip marketing. Getting your name out there and letting your clients know what services you offer is a great way to grow and expand your services. So we have various tools that our marketing team has put together on past webinars that have snippets on how to do a lot of different things. For 26, don't be afraid of mold. You don't want to, there's generally not a reason to fear finding mold, because you want to present your clients with the best information you can. So you want to make sure if it's there, you're reporting it as it was found, and clearly and concisely communicating that to your clients. It doesn't always kill real estate deals. And it's certainly one of those things that you want to find for your client before they make a decision on the home. Because after they decide to purchase the home and then they find an issue, that's a scenario where you would rather have found it ahead of time so they could at least make an informed decision. Don't skip out on insurance for your business, and making sure if you're providing mold or other ancillary services that those actions are covered by your existing policy. We do have a previous webinar, episode 15 to be exact, where we had an insurance expert on and talking. So do not, You want to make sure you and your business are protected, and you want to make sure that the actions you're doing are also covered by the policy you have. In 28, you don't want to forget most sampling media does expire, and you want to make sure you keep an eye on the expiration date, and that you um, only order as many supplies as you're going to use in that expiration date period. Don't forget that you can use a battery pack with our SportsLite professional air sampling pump. You can use a wall adapter or a battery pack. We have a link to the battery pack we have tested. We are in the process of testing more battery packs, so very soon we'll likely have additional recommended battery packs and different factors. So keep an eye out for that in the next couple weeks. Yeah, consider going wireless and having a battery pack for your pump. Lastly, and I saw a question just come in related to this, is don't store your samples in extreme temperature. Most of these cassettes, the media, tape, and swab slides have a manufacturer recommended storage temperature, and you want to make sure you're not keeping these things in very cold or very hot environments. These things can be impacted, and that goes for unused and used media as well. So hot, cold, direct sunlight, all of those things can affect the cassettes and other media. So be very mindful and be familiar with the storage requirements of those sampling materials. So a couple questions here. Can we keep the equipment and supplies in the car? That was the very last thing I talked about. You can keep it in the car, but with those caveats, you don't. If it's going to be very, very hot, very, very cold, you want to make sure you keep that in mind. And also, if you're bringing them in from a hot or cold environment, you want to make sure that they regulate to room temperature before you sample. Can you add photos of the samples in the chain of custody? We don't have a way to attach photos. That would be for your records, not the record of the test submitted to us. Yeah, sending the pictures of the samples to us isn't very helpful, but that is something that is helpful for your records. When testing, is it important to know the relative humidity, temperature, and weather conditions on site? If the answer is yes, can it be added to the chain of custody? If that is important to you, you should log it. As far as our analysis and the results of our test, those factors are typically not going to change how we analyze the samples, how we prep and analyze the samples. So sending that with the chain of custody is not super relevant. The chain of custody is there for the material facts of that sampling cassette, the barcode, the location, the sampling duration, time. Those things do have an impact on the results. So that's what the chain of custody is for. Those other things may be helpful for your notes in your report, but not important to the laboratory analysis. Thoughts on ERMI testing? I have a client that had it done and now went to my company to come in and test. ERMI testing answers a fundamentally different question than non-viable spore trap and surface samples. There's a number of resources on the net to give you a comparison. So I would just search ERMI testing versus air testing and find a couple of the resources out there so you're better informed, because they are fundamentally different technologies, different analysis types, and answering different types of questions. And it could be its own webinar in itself. So I don't have a lot of time to get into the details, but you can find various resources out there to give you more details. And let's see, question, do we ship to the UK? We currently do not ship to the UK. We're partnering with a distributor that will stock our samples and will actually process samples in the UK. If you want to message our sales team or just message us through the website, we'd be happy to connect you with that company as well. One more minute. One last question. What's the temperature range? That's going to vary from media to media. So in the product information on the manufacturer's website is where you'll find that information, because it will vary from media to media. I don't know all of them off the top of my head. Generally speaking, it's, if I can recall correctly, it's typically around freezing. So 32 degrees Fahrenheit to upper end maybe 80 degrees, 90 degrees. I'm not sure. So check with the specific media that you use in the manufacturer. And with that, I went over 30 things to do or not to do from 30 episodes of webinars in 30 minutes. So I think I got through all the questions as well. If there's questions we didn't get to, send them in to our sales team or our website, and we'd be happy to get those questions answered for you. Look out for our next webinar coming up in October. And we'll be happy to continue doing these for another 30 plus episodes. So thanks for joining us. Have a good evening.